thank you for those that have made it to the last mile, last panel, and we're going to get you out of here only 5 minutes over time, we promise. So, yeah, thank you so much for the invitation, Devor, and for being here today. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves when they answer their first questions, because you can give the best introduction about what you do and that link to those commercial decisions, which is building off that last session. But at Astrolabe Group, we are a strategic consultancy in planning and place, so that's what brings us here today. But the other part of what we do is we also develop innovations in plan tech. So we've just recently moved into stone and chalk scale up. So in terms of, bringing some of those learnings across what multiple parts of the innovation sector is doing is, also builds on that idea of broadening out our networks and the collaboration. So I'd start, if you could, introduce yourselves as we go along on that first question, but really thinking about commercial space and decision making. We've already talked about the impacts of COVID and how that's changed things, but also different sectors need different spaces, and they have a different types of workforce. So really, what are some of the decisions that you're making now, and I guess how have they evolved? Am I handing this to you? Yes.
I'll gladly take it. So Emlyn Kean, thanks to Andrew. Stockland needs no introduction. Big dogs. It's the first time I've ever been referred to as a big dog. But I like it. And thank you for all truly committed to Macquarie Park for sticking to the end. Look, I and Stockland, I represent the business. I speak for the business, representing that we support a lot of what is being said here, and what I mean there is we truly want to create mixed-use precincts. That's what Stockland does. They create communities. We're the biggest residential home builder in Australia, so we want to have activated precincts. And you talk to what tenants are looking for, what tenants talk to us about now, and yes, we have the M Park project going up, and it will be completed next year, that first stage, with 3 buildings to take the glare off the data centre. And it's you kind of think there's a solution there too, right? Because they don't really want us looking at them as much as we don't really want to look at them. So that's what we will try to do. That's what we'll strive to do. And I'm going to go around on tangents here a little bit, but also very much agree with Andrew's position that we require certain things to make precincts work, and with the value of land in Macquarie Park, we require a mixed use. We've built 60,000 square metres there at M Park Stage 1, and yet we do still have vacancy. So when stone and chalk, when you grow out of that, give us a shout. But it does make not only the precinct and the vibrancy of the place. It is also a feasible investment, and we don't do all of this on balance sheet. We have to attract capital partners, and so it is vital that through the planning that we have mixed use, and we have the ability to do mixed use. But to go back to insofar as what tenants are talking to us about is also. Look, they talk about ESG now more than ever. Absolutely, it's fundamental, and it's we're a net zero for 2025 business, and we're doing it in an interesting way. Like M Park is all our assets in Macquarie Park, and we've got 16 buildings, so it's we are truly committed to the region. Net zero for us, for example, is that we've now done something that no one else has done thus far, and that we're putting all of the renewable energy onto our industrial buildings throughout the country in order to power the workplace assets, for example, because they just don't have the roof space. So ESG first and foremost, and there's a lot in that. But activated assets, the feedback that they give to us is that as people are now working hybrid, right? As they're working at home on a day or two or more, whatever the case may be, and then coming into the office, it's like this stark contrast now. It's, whereas we were just in a rhythm of going 5 days a week into the glass box. Now it's like, no, I really don't like my Tuesday, because on my Monday I have my window open and I feel the day and I connect with the day and all those sorts of things. And so we are, at pains to design and create assets that will fulfill what tenants are asking us, which is they want assets with character, with some energy, with some connection to outdoor spaces, with some natural light, with some, without the glare, without the sort of artificial and shiny flat surfaces and the likes, with truly organic materials and the like. So that is something that we're hearing a lot about. Wellness is the other one, and I might pass on, but that's another one that we hear a lot about. Again, people want spaces that reflect a well-being, but also a productivity. They want to be productive in their workplace, and you're productive when you feel connected and well. That's a big response.
From the big dog. Right.
I'm done.
Do you want to do that? Can everyone hear Ashlie?
Thank you. I'm Ashlie Hartigan. I'm here for Wentworth Capital. We are a private equity property investment, and so we do retail and industrial, but in the last 3 years we've started looking more at life science and innovation real estate as a emerging field here in Australia. My role with them is to talk to the scientists. I used to be a scientist, used to be on the bench, and then got burnt out and went commercial. But speaking to scientists, talking about who's in which ecosystem, talking to them about what kind of fit outs they need, what kind of connections they need into that community, so they're not just putting in a bunch of empty labs, which is the worry that we saw overseas. So in response to COVID working conditions, I think Wentworth really started to look at what trends they were seeing overseas, and labs being built in vacant office buildings was certainly something that I saw when I was living and working in the UK. It felt like every space in London was being turned into a lab. If you had a bathroom, you had a new COVID space, which they can be really, really exciting spaces. I was in a commercial biotech accelerator that was in an office building, and that was surrounded by other, I used to call them the normal tenants. There would be all the science tenants, and there was everybody else in that building. And all of that was, they were separated from a university, and they didn't have a hospital to magnetise people to their area, but they came because they needed the space. And so Wentworth is seeing now that there are a lot of people who they don't want to move overseas and start their business there. So what our vision is to try and build up that lab space availability for people who want to co-locate here, build their business here, and be in the precinct as well. Connect to the precinct, connect with the key players, to all of that. So we've raised a specialised fund for that. We've also got a joint venture with BlackRock for, I think it's $1.5 billion that we're looking to deploy. And we look at key ecosystems in all around Australia, but we look very hard at Macquarie Park because it's got so many amazing features in it.
Hi, I'm Nick Smith. I'm the CEO of Caraba. Following a little bit on the trend of what Wentworth do, we are a specialised life science developer. We have a large precinct in Waterloo. And going back to Andy's point, we're trying to stitch Everleigh back into where the Metro Quarter investment's been, to what's happening with the Waterloo estate. And we're that missing middle, where we've really become the commercialised precinct in between two. And we own a building in Everleigh, which has our incubator in it and is coming online next year. It has Sydney University in with their lab space. And we're now a specialised precinct of 4 buildings, which we do have a cyclotron for Doug, sitting under one of the buildings. And looking at that radiopharmacology sitting there. We've also got R&D space with an incubator. We've got pilot manufacturing GMP facilities throughout the asset, both in the incubator and standalone. We're attracting a CRO from overseas. But again, like Wentworth, we're really seeing that shortage of lab space in this market and trying to attract that talent to stay on shore and not go overseas and commercialise.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So getting a bit more into some of the specifics after that good general overview about what you're starting to look at for decisions on what tenants like. I know both Ashlie and Emlyn, you've got people that are interested in being in Mac Park. You're in Mac Park, obviously. So, I mean, I guess what are some of the key attributes that they are looking for and that you can offer here at the moment? And what does Mac Park need to do next? I think thinking of some of Andrew's quick wins there as well.
We're in Mac Park too. Just to say, it's not just Stockland and Goodman.
There are other dogs in town running with the herd.
I think so. We look at Macquarie Park because it has so many of those aspects that you can. I think that you cannot buy the history and reputation of Macquarie Park, and part of that is because it's got a long history of innovation, of collaboration, and also commercialisation. Maybe I'm a bit biased because I went to uni here, but I mean, Macquarie Uni, I felt even, back in the day when I was here, that even then it was this real push to promote the scientists that were doing great research, ones that had commercial output there. And I think Connect MPID does a great job of promoting the scientists that are within that community. It has many layers that I saw them overseas where it was much more developed appetite for this kind of connection of the scientists and promotion of what they do. We've got a great community of startups and SMEs that are inside Macquarie Park. Every company that I speak to that's in Macquarie Park, they want to stay, they want to expand. Every company that I speak to that's outside of Macquarie Park, they are happy to be here. I haven't heard a single bad thing about it, apart from the instability of where they can actually establish a lab.
That's the next question.
And I'd only support, when we talk to our tenants, they do want to stay in Macquarie Park. And, when I see things like this morning, you appreciate that, Macquarie Park has genuine opportunity connections. And I say that because I've managed, other areas and business parks where we've tried to promote to tenants how to interact and how to create networks that are mutually beneficial. And it's pushing it uphill much more than it is Macquarie Park. Tenants that we talk to, I've got one in my mind at the moment that is a big tenant that is absolutely not leaving Macquarie Park, but they have they're sort of outgrown in both size and form of their asset with robotics and other automations and technology that has driven their business to a point. And so we're thinking, okay, well, we want you to stay in Macquarie Park too, and what can we create? And that's where, again, it comes back to be honest, the land value and the economics of some of those things now is really challenging unless you have a sort of a mixed use opportunity on a site. So we do recognise, and as I said, we're sort of all in Macquarie Park. The value is another factor. You can't deny that the price point to do what our tenants want to do in Macquarie Park versus some of the other locations that we are in is a real draw card. And so the transport is getting better. That's certainly something that, Optus is a huge tenant of ours, running a bus sort of back and forth to the metro. Transport can be better. You talked about a rotating shuttle bus or something like that would make a difference. So our tenants are more committed, I'd say, to Macquarie Park than in a lot of other locations when we talk to them. It's not normal you say to a landlord, "Oh, I'd really like to stay." Usually you approach that to say, "I could go anywhere." But genuinely, tenants want to be here for those reasons.
So this is why we did this panel last, because it's the real good news story about how committed everyone is to being here. Now, Nick, you've got some insights really from that life sciences perspective, particularly around the precinct that you've built and other case studies. What would you bring to Macquarie Park?
Yeah, I think as a landlord, we're there as the racecourse. We're there to not pick the winner, but we're about making them fit to fund. We're about putting the infrastructure in, the networking assets, the economic assets, whether it's the training programs for lab techs, the training programs to get a scientist, the business acumen to expand, the VC funding, bringing those partnerships into a precinct. The asset's one thing, But the networking and the economic assets are really the important things that go wrap around a precinct.
Yeah, absolutely. But going back about the physical and commercial assets, I do want to ask a question, and it might sound counterintuitive, these three things together, but you do need a bit of long-term stability and certainty, but you also need flexibility in permissible use and planning and decision making. So, what are you all as decision makers looking for?
These buildings are very specific. They're not easily retrofitted in commercial office. They need to be purposely built. The cores are bigger with reticulated services. Their 4-to-4s require much higher than a commercial office. We need speed to get these things into the market. And I think that's we need SSDA processes and councils to support that SSDA to get these through and operational as quickly as possible, because there is a lack of bench space. We've got a 20-year-old asset in Everleigh that we can fill 4 times over. We don't have any lab space in these markets.
Yeah, I'd second that. I'd also say that the CEOs and the founders that I speak to, the other thing that sort of hangs over them is when they've got to go and talk to their investors, to tell their investors, oh, I actually have to set aside a huge amount of capital to potentially move, potentially do a new fit out. It's expensive. The scientists, I think, are great tenants, and the fact that they're there, they are there Monday to Friday usually, and they are there after hours. They bring their families with them because they tend to be here for a long time. So I think they're good tenants to have in those buildings. And I think that the conversations I have, I can hear the stress where they have to talk to their investors about how much money they have to set aside for this and divert from R&D in case they have to move to a different part of Sydney. It's a real problem, I think, from Macquarie Park.
Yeah, again, it's been said before, but less prescriptive, less defined from planning. We know, you can't let developers run riot either, right? That's not going to end well. But by allowing the commercials to drive some of these opportunities, and yes, having rules around height and noise and setbacks and things like that, but insofar as permittable uses, just having a more dynamic arrangement, a more flexible arrangement, because it will also change through time. I mean, it's all cyclical. We're going through a replanning exercise now, which is sort of put the brakes on a lot of things, and that's okay. You got to go through those. But having something that doesn't mean that every few years you do a replanning exercise and then you're allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do that, and it gets highly prescriptive. That's something that it's more challenging to work in.
Excellent. Before I hand over to the crowd, I'm just wondering, what's your pitch for Macquarie Park? What's the brand when you're out there?
You don't.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But I don't need to pitch it. I feel that people come to me and ask me for space in Macquarie Park. But the pitch that I tell to people who don't know the sector very well, and it's usually people, our overseas investors or people from outside of Sydney, is talking about the culture and the fact that you, again, cannot buy that. The culture that comes from the obvious collaboration that comes from the deep tech incubator and industry, obvious connections that are there. There's commercialized outputs that you can point to that really prove that that's working. I think that my pitch for Macquarie Park is that it's already great. Let's keep it as much as possible. Keep Connect MPID talking about everybody and build that momentum. I would hate to see that lose steam.
Yeah, look, I mean, I talked already. We asked tenants to talk to other tenants that are here, but its geographical location also is highly sought after. What we talked to them about too is how it is evolving and how there is going to be more amenity and how there is going to be more access and permeability. And so therefore it's a time to come into Macquarie Park, because it is, it is shifting, and that is something that we hear a lot of, is that the lunchtime options, for example, they walk out the door and you kind of got to go somewhere in order to have that. And so things that have been already talked to here about food trucks and other things, that just they go down so well because they're just, it's a simple thing, but it absolutely resonates with people. It's terrific, right? On a Tuesday and a Wednesday, a different food truck's going to roll in. So having those options is something that we sometimes have to, that we get challenged on, and so we're trying to do something about that also.
I think it's the diversity of space. You've got manufacturing here, and we can't lose that. And definitely, it needs to be retained within the park. You've got university or varsity space, which is much more to IP generation. Then you've got commercialised space that Stockland's bringing on. It's got to remain. I think you need to get that activation, that ground plane, and that placemaking right to attract new tenants. I think the ones that are here are going to stay, but I think to really be that future of life science, it can't just be on campus.
Well, no, I think it's probably best to end on the watch your pitch from Macquarie Park for the whole day, really. Then, and I think, really, really building off the last session where, that place, and it's not just the physical that we talked about. We talked as much about that amenity and the place making that goes into your decisions, but also the decisions of who's going to come here. So thank you so much to all the dogs. It was great to have the discussion with you. Thank you so much.